I've never been really fond of playing cards. During college, some friends attempted to teach me poker, but I never got it. As a result, I never tried to study the hand hierarchy or the intricacies of Texas Hold'em, or whatever the game is called there. It simply did not pique my attention. I was tired of continually losing money to my cutthroat buddies. I gave up playing completely. In contrast, my wife Kathy adored and excelled at poker. She did well in local tournaments, although she usually played with her regular group of friends. They met once or twice a month at Larry and Sandy's suburban townhome. Interestingly, Kathy knew them since college. Katie is a lifelong friend, and Sandy was her former roommate. Larry, Sandy, Kathy, Paul, Brian, and Terry made up the ensemble. Despite the fact that I was present, Paul's wife Mary and Brian's wife Allison did not play. I'd rather watch TV in the living room. There used to be another player West, but he was banned for cheating. While I did not object to Kathy's participation, it was her audience, not mine. Mary and Allison were fine, and we were even getting closer. However, the rest were, at most, passable. Interacting with them voluntarily was beyond my expectations. Mark, in particular, was a complete fool whom I despised. Terry and Mark felt isolated. Terry, who was cautious and humble, did not appear to be particularly skilled at poker. Mark, on the other hand, was irritating. If we met paths in public, I'd probably ignore him. His loud, abrasive, and self-absorbed behavior caused us to disagree on several occasions. I tolerated him simply because he belonged to my wife's poker circle, and I only saw him during their games. My primary issue with poker nights was Katie's overly competitive nature. If she lost it, it would have a negative impact on her mood the next day. Despite my attempts to address the issue, she rejected them. She had recently been pushing for weekly poker gatherings, something I was not interested in, and Mary and Allison agreed. Fortunately, this has temporarily halted the weekly poker strategy. Tensions rose on Saturday night at Larry and Sandy's, especially for Katie. As the night progressed, I periodically checked on her, only to be met with her frustration. Eventually, much after the regular time, I heard a ruckus in the dining room where they played. I stepped in and caught Mark's allegation about a bet, which was supported by Larry's reminder of the regulations. Katie hesitantly consented and signaled her time to play. "What's happening?" Mark asked with a smile and an angry look. Katie lost all of her money, enabling me to enjoy the final hand. "She is lost. It's now time to get things straight, apologies." Katie stated that she would not do this to anyone else but me. "Hello, buddy." She placed a bet and lost. That is the rule. Katie decided at that point to take control of her destiny. "Henry, everything is okay. I lost. I will pay," Katie conceded. "No, Katie, you owe me loyalty. Trying to settle for less would be betraying myself," Henry protested. Mark's behavior simply reaffirmed my suspicions about his nature. "You're watching this. Therefore, it's not treachery," he claimed. I snapped because I was fed up. "You stupid, shut up. This is not about you." I turned to Katie and persuaded. "Let's go. We are leaving." Katie paused. "Henry, I hate to do this, but I have to. If I don't, I'll be booted out." My response was firm. "I do not care if you are expelled. I do not care if you never play poker again." I approached and started yelling out, "Hello, people. I need your aid." Katie looked at Paul and Brian, then tilted her head toward me as I approached her. Paul and Brian grabbed me from behind. I struggled, but Larry stepped in and helped them detain me. "Are you serious, idiots?" I exclaimed. "You are going to hold me down while my wife performs this in front of me?" Larry replied quietly. "She placed a gamble and knew the repercussions. She chooses to stay, so she pays up." He chuckled. "Don't worry, Mark won't be here much longer." He truly was an idiot. Mark then advanced, stopping just in front of Katie, who was kneeling. "Catherine, if you go through with this, it will be over," I stated quietly and emphasized her complete name. "Stop being dramatic, Henry," she said as she leaned forward. I let out a loud scream which stopped her. "Hold on a moment," I interjected. She hesitated to meet my eyes. "I only want to be clear. Is everyone okay with this?" Silence dominated the room until Mark stood forward and dismissed my concerns. "Come on, he's ruining the mood," he said. Katie leaned forward and intervened. "Okay, that's enough. I can't bear to see that any longer. Let me go and I will depart." With a developing strategy in mind, I recognized Katie and I's relationship was far from done. I needed to exact vengeance on this imbecile. Katie hesitated, signaled to the man, and restrained me. They let go and I gently approached Katie, pretending to fumble with my wedding ring. I extended my left hand, fingers spread wide, then clenched my right hand into a fist. He knelt determinedly on my left and Mark grinned menacingly to my right. "I warned you, Katie, that if you go through with this, we are done," I repeated, standing beside them and locking eyes with her. "You did it, Catherine." And like an idiot, I murmured as I said this. I hit Mark in the nose with the back of my right fist, causing him to cover his face with both hands. I quickly moved to his right and delivered another blow with my left fist as he cowered, causing him to fall backward. His trousers and underwear gathered around his ankles, resulting in a clumsy fall onto his backside and then flat into the floor, lying between the dining table and a large antique cabinet. I acted rashly because I was angry. Katie slid backward, resting on her back as I loomed over Mark. To my right, at his feet, stood a large dining table that could comfortably seat 8 people, with 3 seats on each side. On my left, stood an immense antique wardrobe at least 6 feet long. Its oak base was around 30 inches tall and was ornamented with multiple drawers and doors. While the upper half, another 40 inches taller, featured mirrored glass doors that encased various artifacts such as China Hummel figurines and snow globes that occupied the top of the antique cabinet. I knew toppling it wasn't an option, but I tried to induce terror. The heavy base, laden with stuff, most likely cost more than £300, while the top part, supported by a wooden frame, held fragile items. Unfortunately for Mark, Larry had failed to adequately secure the top half to the base. As I tugged on it, the upper half of the cabinet tipped over. Though I hadn't intended to bring everything down on Mark, I was weirdly pleased with the result. The ensuing accident sounded like an explosion. Unfortunately for Mark, the distance between the cabinet stand and the table kept it from falling on him. Instead, the lower portion remained on the stand, while the higher portion crashed into the dining table. Unfortunately for Mark, the contents of the cabinet cascaded forward, shattering through the glass doors. Shards of glass showered down on him and the stuff inside, causing several cuts. Fortunately, he shielded his injured face with his hands, preventing the glass from damaging his broken nose and eyes. Unfortunately for Mark, when he struck the floor, his shirt rode up to his stomach because his jeans and boxers had been pushed down to his ankles, exposing his upper abdomen and shins. The scene moved quickly, leaving everyone in startled silence. Throughout it all, I remained in improvisation mode, appearing to be concerned. I circled the table where his head lay and shouted, "Don't touch him, get an ambulance." When I reached his head, I crouched so low that only he could hear me whispering, "I hope you bleed, but if not, find me later and we'll talk about it. Just so you know, there is glass everywhere. I would not move much if I were you." Sandy came from the kitchen announcing that the ambulance was on its way. "Ida has 5 minutes. Should we also call the police?" Katie and I reacted simultaneously. She declined, but I insisted, "Absolutely." Katie was not naive. She realized that engaging the police entailed filing a report and providing statements. Larry was infuriated. "Dude, you nearly eliminated him and destroyed my cabinet. We should call the cops, he argued. I did not attempt to eliminate him, but I agree we should contact the cops. I relented. Personally, I'd be happy to speak with them. Isn't this like soliciting love for money? I challenged. I'll look into this. They will never buy it. I continued. Larry countered. Who do you think people will believe? Is it me or the guy who was sleeping here half naked and is not married to any of the women? I conceded. Maybe I am mistaken. Go ahead and phone them. Do as you please. Please call the cops. I will wait outside for the ambulance, I added. I circled the table and approached Katie, who was now kneeling by Mark, squatted next to her. I took off my wedding ring and flung it into the shattered glass near Mark's head. You know what, Catherine? I don't think I'll need this anymore. If you wish, you can pull it out of the glass. Katie glanced at me, teary-eyed, and begged for cards near to his head. What are the extra cards? Wait, the person you left your marriage for is a cheater. Are you kidding me? I exclaimed. Mark, you are an idiot. I nearly betrayed my husband. You actually cheated. There is a significant distinction between almost cheating and true cheating. I decided to address it later, noting that Mark was unable to talk owing to the shards of glass covering his face, and blood was now sprayed everywhere. Stay here, Catherine. I will go outside to meet the ambulance. They should arrive any minute. I'll let you know when they arrive. I exited through the front door, got into my car and drove away. 2 blocks down I saw an ambulance moving slowly, scanning house numbers with its spotlight. I continued on my way home. When I arrived, I went inside the house and started packing. Following the arrival of the police, I quickly packed a small suitcase and a couple of duffel bags. Over the next 2 days, I finished packing right as I was zipping up my luggage. Katie entered the front door and called out, "Where are you, Henry?" I ignored her and left the bedroom with my things. "There you are," she exclaimed when she spotted me. "Henry, what are you doing? You don't need to leave," she pleaded. "God knows." I started addressing Mark. "I understand what you did to me, Mark. How about Larry and Brian? Where do you just target married men and prefer to kneel down rather than settle for cash? By the way, what was the bet?" Katie interjected. "Henry, stop it." Mark was the sole exception, regardless of the stakes. It was an issue of principles. I didn't intend to make love with him. Furthermore, you intervened. Have I stopped you? You were already getting down to work. She countered, dodging the question. I was able to prevent them from involving the police and rescue your ring from the smashed glass. I've mentioned that previously. I do not care. They should contact the police. Heck, I could have eliminated him. Perhaps I should confess to the cops. I wondered aloud. No, Henry, that's a poor idea. She warned. We will pay for the damages ourselves. Screw them. I won't give them anything. When is your next poker night? I inquired. Not for a few weeks. Mark will not be invited back, so do not worry. We will have time to recover. She reassured Henry. Where are you going? She cried out as I approached the door. By the time she finished speaking, I was outside, getting into my car. I drove away as she stood at the front door, shouting at me and ignoring her. I drove many kilometers till I found a motel and reserved a room for the night. I turned off my phone and spent the night staring at the ceiling. Eventually, I fell asleep around 5 a.m. and awoke around 10. After taking a shower, I paid for my stay until Wednesday at the front desk. When I turned my phone back on, I saw a dozen missed calls from Katie, as well as another dozen from Allison and Mary. Katie sent us countless texts defending her acts and claimed they meant nothing to us. Despite her regrets, she attempted to justify what had transpired by stating it was just a bet. I responded with a single text, suggesting she forward all of her communications to her mother to measure her reaction to the situation. I then switched my phone off again. I sat on a park seat for 2 hours, then wandered around the mall for an hour before sitting on another park bench. Later, I went to the shop and filled up on junk food before returning to my motel room, where I spent the rest of the night eating snacks and investigating scams online. By 10 o'clock, I was exhausted and fell asleep. Monday morning I tried to focus on work, but my employer observed my diversion and inquired about it. When I told him about my family difficulties, he suggested I take a few days off. He recommended me to phone on Wednesday to confirm whether I required any further time off for the remainder of the week. It was time to depart regardless. I decided to swing by the neighborhood bar and grill for a couple of beers and some nicer cuisine than what I had bought from the store. Not wanting to interact with anyone, I went to the rear of the restaurant and sat at a booth regardless of my choice. Suddenly, 2 figures approached, neither of them the waitress. "Hello, Henry. Do you mind if Allison and I join you?" one of them asked. I ignored their presence and took a sip of ice water. "Are you upset at us, too? What have we done?" they inquired. "Nothing. What did you two do?" "Absolutely nothing," I responded calmly. Mary and Allison slid into the booth across from me and Allison took the microphone. "Henry, why are you unhappy with Mary and me if we done nothing wrong?" "I know you don't like people playing poker with Katie, but I assumed we were friends," she said. "I also thought so, but you did not do anything severe." "You're both asking me this." I reacted sharply and kept my voice level. "You stood silently as your spouse restrained me and my wife attended to another man without my permission, and you stayed silent." The 2 of them sat silently. "What kind of buddies are you?" I looked around, praying for someone to intervene, but you 2 said nothing. I didn't believe she would actually do it. Mary confessed. "I assumed it was simply a silly joke." I couldn't believe she did that. Allison said, expressing her regret. "She is feeling terrible right now. She's terrified you'll show these communications to her mother." "You wouldn't, correct?" "Not yet. But I will, if necessary. Everyone knows how horrible things were. We talked about it after you left in the ambulance." She took Mark away. Larry and Sandy assured that they would not involve the police. "You'll just have to pay for the damages," I explained. "Listen, Mary, I am not paying anyone anything," I declared forcefully. Larry and Sandy may have assisted Katie with her apparent gambling problem, but it does not justify their involvement. Sandy stood by and watched Larry aggressively detain me, while Katie wrecked our marriage to escape being expelled out of the blasted poker group. "Henry, she's a disaster. Please attempt to forgive her," Mary pleaded. "I'm not sure if she even wants forgiveness. She does not believe she did anything wrong. She presumably wants me to apologize for preventing her from settling her bet," I retorted quickly. Allison had an idea. What if we leveled the playing field? What if you meet someone who can fulfill you in return? I spoke to her slowly and deliberately as if explaining to a kid. Consider this. We were in a room, presumably with pals. Even those same friends held me back so she could settle the bet. Now to level the playing field, I need to locate a woman who will please me. Essentially, I embarrass myself in front of her friends, and she only hears that I retaliated. The sight of her on her knees is etched in my memory. On the other hand, she may not believe I got even. She might simply pretend it didn't happen, but I saw it. There must be a way to end this. I hate seeing my friends go through this. Mary, that's nonsense. You say you don't want to see me hurt. Yet are you comfortable with how hurt I was on Saturday? You just stood there and watched everything happen. I was struggling. Yet you paid no attention. Friends do not do that. We are not friends. In my opinion, these two were just as guilty as everyone else. I've been devising a strategy for some payback. I simply need to get things in motion. If someone had spoken up, I'm sure this would not have happened. You could have mentioned something to your spouses. I may have created a fight, but it could have saved my marriage. It's time to give them some optimism. But I'm not sure if there is a way to level the playing field as you suggest. I am not inherently averse to the idea. I simply don't see how. What if one of us does? I looked at Allison for nearly 10 seconds. What if it's the two of you? Wait. Do you want us to even the score? Mary asked. I can't do it. Paul will be upset if he finds out. I understand completely. I remarked cynically. The man who controlled me while my wife betrayed me, I see everything well. I will do that. Allison volunteered, surprised both of us. You're correct. We share some responsibility, she admitted. I can't go along with this, Mary interjected. And it's unjust of you to put me in this situation, Henry. If Allison is willing to help, that should be sufficient. No, I countered. The bait has been set. Now it's time to reel them in. Neither of you mean anything to me. This is part of the negotiations. I do not seek equilibrium. I demand that the scales shift in my favor. Mary pondered calmly for approximately 2 minutes. The longer she hesitated, the more assured I became in dealing with the situation. If we agree, will you forgive Katie? She asked, finally. If you refuse, I will not even consider it. You won't tell Paul, she added, I will not say a word. I told her that technically it was not a lie. I had not intended to express it verbally. We have a motel room reserved until Wednesday a.m. I plan to wait until the weekend before deciding whether to return home or find a new location. I cannot believe this is happening, Mary exclaimed. Welcome to my universe, I replied sarcastically. Look, if it's that bad for you, let it go, I recommended. That is not the issue, Henry. I care about you. And you're a good man. If I wasn't married, I'd be with you right now. But I'm married. You're pushing me to cheat on my hubby. Mary explained, Mary, I'm not pressuring you to do anything. I clarified. I understand. I understand. All right. If it helps you get over what my spouse did, I'll do it. Regardless, it is his fault. If he wasn't such an idiot, I wouldn't be in this situation. As for me, she can rationalize it any way she wants. It's my method of getting back at her awful spouse. So I don't care, I thought to myself, okay, we'll meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. in my room. I will bring some food and wine, I proposed. Both women rose from the table and left while conversing. They appeared to be looking forward to tomorrow night and were not upset. Am I the only person who takes marriage vows seriously? I know what you are thinking. Here I am. A married man plans to date 2 married women while lecturing about the sacredness of marriage. I reflected. But she cheated me by doing so. She mistreated and embarrassed me. Our marriage was already declared null and void. I no longer kept those vows. Everything was over except for the papers and the woman I was about to meet. They and their husbands shared responsibility. So what the hell with them? I will never understand those whose husbands cheat. Nonetheless, they insist on preserving the sacredness of marriage. Blah, blah, blah. My motto is, what's good for the goose? I acknowledged that she did not intend to deceive me. But when her prized spot in the poker group was on the line, she didn't hesitate to comply. Yes, I may be unreasonable. Yes, she needs help with her gambling problem. However, she may not seek treatment until she has reached rock bottom. Perhaps divorce. Is that rock bottom? The next day, Tuesday, I returned to my hometown. Sure, Katie was not present and went inside to get some new stuff. It was difficult strolling around my house, seeing vestiges of my life everywhere. and knowing it will never be the same. Every time nostalgia crept in, I imagined her kneeling in front of Mark. The wrath remained strong, so I chose not to take anything that reminded me of her. I took various devices, including my laptop and iPad camera, as well as some basic tools and clothing. I decided to begin apartment hunting after leaving and return later for the remaining goods. I didn't need much. Leaving the house, I looked for apartments and discovered an economical, furnished one-bedroom place available for monthly rent. I could move at any time after Saturday, after the lease was finalized. I went to lunch and planned to meet the girls at Best Buy. I bought an Apple SD card reader and 12 SD cards. I also got the cheapest wireless color printer they had. Then I went to a liquor store and bought a few bottles of wine that I knew Mary and Allison liked. I returned to the motel room and placed my items in a chaotic manner. Due to the room's disorder, the 35 camera was strategically placed to provide an unimpeded view of the bed while being inconspicuous. Around 5:30, I ordered appetizers from a local restaurant, and they arrived shortly before 6. A quiet knock on the door came at 6:15. Peering through the crowd, I made sure it was women, not enraged husbands. I wasn't particularly afraid of my own husband, but I didn't want to be taken off guard again. I set the camera to record and invited the women inside, offering them wine. Early hesitant, they eventually agreed, believing that a little liquid bravery couldn't hurt. Ladies, we do not have to do this. We may simply enjoy wine, food, and one another's company. I assured you that I would never put you under any pressure to do something you are not comfortable with. I understand, Henry. Allison said, "You're a very kind individual. Unfortunately, Brian is not as considerate as you." Katie absolutely lucked out. Mary and I have talked about this since we parted ways yesterday. You were right. We failed by remaining silent. By not speaking up, we were taking responsibility. I deeply regret our inaction. I appreciate it. I simply want to understand where I went wrong. I responded, "What do you mean, Mary? What did you do wrong?" It's difficult to believe Katie made such a hasty decision. If she wanted to include me, she should have done it before I came. I just want to know what I did to make her believe this was acceptable. Henry, I honestly believe this was the first time something like this happened. Something like this cannot be kept secret. The truth always emerges. Mary explained, I am unsure how truthful her statement was. Okay, let's get started. Allison interjected enthusiastically. You proceed to the bed and stand according to her instructions. I position myself as she directs. I'll undress you now. Stay still. No hands. I want to do it myself. Meanwhile, Mary sat in the office chair by the desk, smiling broadly. It made me question if these two were familiar with such experiences. Mary positioned herself precisely to capture everything on video. Allison unbuttoned my shirt. I slid it down my arms, keeping them extended forth. She ran her hands over my chest, grinning widely. She then unfastened my shoes and had me lift each foot to remove them, followed by my socks. Proceeding. She undid my belt, unbuttoned my jeans, and slid them down over my hips. Allison knelt in front of me after I took off my jeans. Though I wanted to speed the procedure, I controlled myself and let her go at her own pace, which was astonishing. Fortunately for Brian, it did not take long. When she was finished, she knelt down and gazed up at me compassionately. I leaned down and kissed her forehead. That was wonderful, Allison, absolutely fantastic, Mary. I'll need a time to replenish the batteries. I joked. We sat down and enjoyed some of the food and wine we had brought along. During our meal, we discussed what happened after I left Larry and Sandy's on Saturday night. Allison spoke up first. You were present when Katie discovered the cards on Mark's shoulder and accused him of cheating. He struggled to speak at first because he was afraid glass would get into his injured nose or mouth. Mary chimed in next. His reaction when the ambulance arrived was priceless, if a little delayed. It took them a little longer than expected to take his hands away from his face. It appeared dreadful to say the least. So much for? I will go meet the ambulance, Allison remarked, copying me with a sneer. I answered, pretending forgetfulness must have slipped my mind. Unfortunately, he managed to pull through. Mary shuddered at the memory. Then he goes on about not cheating, claiming Katie owes him a bet on how he'll seek retribution. Blah, 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 Allison added, and the blood. She proceeded. It was everywhere. The EMT didn't even attempt to clean him up. They just covered him and whisked him away. Mary took matters into her own hands. Katie insisted she wouldn't settle their bet unless he could prove he didn't cheat. At this point I interjected, so if Mark proves he's innocent, she'll still honor the bet. A significant pause followed as the girls fell silent. Then Mary resumed. I don't think there's much cause for concern right now. Are you absolutely certain? I replied. As I mentioned, Mark sustained numerous cuts all over his body. Most were minor, but he had a couple of deeper cuts on his abdomen requiring stitches. He remained hospitalized until Monday to have all the glass removed. Larry visited him at the hospital and had a conversation with him. Allison added he was livid, threatening to not only collect the bet from Katie, but also to engage in carnal activities with her right in front of you. Mary intervened once more, stating, I highly doubt Mark will be welcome back given his cheating. However, Larry's also upset with you. He believes you're liable for the damaged curio cabinet and is frustrated that his homeowners' insurance will need to cover the hospital expenses. Additionally, he expects you to reimburse for the broken items in the cabinet. Mary, relay my message, inform Larry and Sandy that I'll only settle for 10 cents if instructed by the judge. Legal documents and testimonies will be provided to support this. My statement will depict the situation as if I stumbled upon a full-blown orgy. And when I intervened to stop my wife's involvement, I was unlawfully restrained by Larry, Brian, and Paul. It will include the names of all participants and witnesses present. Copies will be distributed to neighbors, family, friends, colleagues, and even churches. Attended by anyone involved. If possible, I'll reach out to Oprah and share the story with the world. We sat in silence for about half a minute until Mary exclaimed, All right, it's my turn. Let's do this. Sure. But I want both of you on close too, I insisted. We don't have to be undressed for this. Allison chuckled, I know we don't have to, but I feel a bit awkward, I replied. Forget about it, Mary exclaimed, we've come this far. What's the difference with that? She undressed and Allison followed suit. I stood at the edge of the bed once more, and this time it was Mary who knelt down without hesitation. I was trying to distract myself from the situation and prolong the process. When Allison rose from her chair, pushed me onto the bed, leaving Mary on her knees. I landed on my back as Allison jumped onto the bed. After about 5 minutes, it seemed to be winding down, when Mary interjected, All right. It's my turn now. Then move over so I can join. Allison giggled, rolled aside, and Mary took her place. Eventually, Mary rolled off and lay beside me. So I asked, Have you done this before? We had our moments. You know, we went to college together, right? Well, we had a few experiences. Mary recounted. That's right, Mary. Allison chuckled a few times. Mary corrected, laughing, more like 100. Mary added before saying, Okay, it was fun, but I should head out. Henry, I hope this helps tip the scales in your favor. Please call me tomorrow and let me know what you think. I really hope you two can get through this. I don't want to lose you as friends. Allison chimed in. Henry, we're truly sorry we didn't speak up when everything was happening. Please call me tomorrow so we can talk. And if you need to talk later, you can call me anytime. Just to be clear, this was probably the only solution I stated. Probably, Mary questioned. Come on, Mary. That's all we've been discussing since last night. You know, we'll do it again. We just need to be more discreet than doing it in front of everyone during a poker game. Agreed. Agreed. I chuckled. We'll talk tomorrow. I'll call you someday. With that, the girls left and I began working on the video I had made. I edited it down to the risque parts and printed out some compromising still photos of both women. Then I copied the edited video onto the remaining SD cards and prepared 9 identical envelopes, which containing an SD card and several explicit photos of the girls. Although it would have been obvious to anyone familiar with us, I cropped the photos and blurred the video to conceal my face. Afterward, I went to bed and quickly fell asleep. Wednesday morning I woke up early, turned my phone back on and noticed another dozen missed calls and messages from Katie. I didn't listen to or read them, but I also didn't delete them. I called my boss and informed him I'd be taking the rest of the week off, then returned home after Katie had left for work to pack up more of my tools and personal belongings. Katie contacted me again over lunch. This time I answered the phone abruptly, saying what? Her reaction was delayed because she looked surprised that I had really picked up. My God, Henry, please do not hang up. Where are you now? We need to talk. We can work through it. Please chat to me. Where did you stop? Please return home so that we can address this. Please interrupting her. I told Katie to just listen for a moment. We will meet on Saturday. I will be there at 6 p.m. Make sure everyone who was with Larry and Sandy is present, except for your guy. If he shows up, I will deal with him again. He's not my guy, Henry. Besides, he's not really up to going out right now. As you mentioned, Saturday at 6 o'clock, this is not a party. This is a conversation. You and your friends can try to persuade me that I should not divorce you. I have not responded to your mails, so be ready to share your thoughts. Tell your pals not to be late. Henry, please do not endanger our marriage over a petty debt. When is the next poker night? Not sure. Perhaps in a few more weeks. You are under no obligation to attend if you do not choose. 2. See you on Saturday. All right. Henry, I love you. Please return home. See you on Saturday. She simply couldn't understand it. She thought the problem was simply my overblown reaction to what she saw as performing her obligation. She failed to see the bigger picture. She truly didn't recognize the problem. During the poker bat seemed more important to her than keeping our marital vows. She hasn't hit her lowest point yet. The remainder of the week went rather smoothly. I went to Walmart and bought necessities for my new residences, including a bathroom, kitchen, and bedroom. I ended up purchasing more products than expected. I then went into a motel for the night. I spent my evenings researching divorce. We didn't have children, and with the property sale, we could each expect around $15,000. Our obligations were small, and our earnings were comparable. It should be rather straightforward. On Saturday afternoon, I messaged Katie and asked her to text me once everyone had gathered. I didn't want to be stuck in an awkward quiet while waiting for someone to come, or to have to repeat everything if someone was late. At $545, she sent a message informing everyone that they were already assembled and waiting in the dining room. At $555, I rang the doorbell at our residence. Honey, this is your house. There is no need to ring the doorbell. Katie mentioned opening the door. As you desire, I responded, passing her as I entered the dining room. I carried a tiny duffel bag full with envelopes. Grandma Katie passed down all of the dining room furniture. The table was large enough for 10 people, with 4 chairs on either side and 1 at each end. When I arrived, 3 empty chairs were beside me. Terry took the far right seat, while Sandy sat with his back to the left. Sandy's left was flanked by 3 vacant seats on Larry's right. Paul was facing me. Then Brian, Mary and Allison took their places at the head of the table. Terry sat to the left. Katie brushed past me and sat in the middle of the 3 unoccupied chairs, thinking I would take the seat next to her. I moved to the left end of the table where Terry was seated and announced, "This is my spot." She requested that you seat next to me. Henry improves on BJ, I will sit here. Who knows, it may lead to something. Katie, set your phone to record. I think you'll need it someday. Without saying anything, Terry stepped in, shifting to the opposite side of Katie. To my right, there was an empty seat, so I placed my exercise bag there. Katie launched the recording app on her iPhone and set it on the table. I took my seat and scanned the table. After an awkward stillness, I addressed the crowd. All right, we all understand why we are here. I'm thinking about divorcing Catherine. If any of you want to persuade me otherwise, this is your time. Terry, why don't you start? Look, Henry, I may not be the ideal person to offer advice on this. My wife cheated on me, which resulted to our divorce. I am deeply sorry you are going through this. Terry clearly hadn't prepared for the encounter. Thank you, Terry. I admire your openness. I could have other inquiries later. I looked around at the faces sitting at the table. Larry, what are your thoughts on this? I inquired. It's not an issue for me. She adores you and she is stunning. Were you expecting her to be a saint when you met her? No, I replied. But I hope she aspires to become one. Would you be cool with Sandy entertaining other men once we got together? Larry grew silent and Sandy trembled in her chair. As I remarked sarcastically and entirely in fun. So how long have you both been openly cheating on each other? Sandy reddened and everyone's jaw fell except Larry, who gave me a piercing stare but stayed silent. Katie exclaimed, Sandy, really? Sandy suddenly had an honest outburst. We only tried it 3 times. I despise it, but Larry insists on continuing. I want to stop. I loathe it. Okay, Sandy, I responded quietly. Why don't you and Catherine talk about this later? You should not feel compelled to do anything you are uncomfortable with. Do you know what an idiot you are? Larry erupted. I warned Katie when she first started dating you that you couldn't handle poker. But you were an idiot and she should dump you. She should have left you years ago. You destroyed thousands of dollars worth of items in my home because your wife accepted the bet. Perhaps I should just dump everything here. Come on, I responded calmly. All of this furniture belonged to your friend Catherine's grandma. It means nothing to me. She sank back into his chair and exhaled hard. His gaze was fastened on me like a dagger. Paul, Brian, any feedback from you? Listen, man, Paul began. None of us want to see our friends break up. I mean, you've been a member of our group for years. I interjected, no, Paul, you are not our pals. You are friends with Catherine and I am her husband. But you're buddies with my wife, he said, that is what I thought. And then she just stood there motionless as you 3 held me down. And my wife knelt before the other guy, but Mary did nothing. That was us. I looked at Mary and Allison, who avoided my gaze and focused on the table. It seems like the conversation did not go as planned. Answer me, Paul. You stroll into a bar and see your friend Brian's wife in the far corner on her knees in front of another guy. What are you doing? You look. Do you call Brian and hope that he arrives on time? Do you intervene to stop her? Assume you're at the bar and you see Brian in the same position. What are you doing? Are you phoning, Allison? The issue is I already have the answers. If it's Brian's wife, you interfere and inform him. If Brian is the one in this case, you're probably going to stay put and possibly even indoors. Allison will not hear about it from you because Brian is your friend and Allison is his wife. And how about you, Brian? Do you believe I am exaggerating? Brian remains silent. The difficulty here is that Katie is your friend, not mine. If Katie attacked me, you wouldn't mind since I'm just your friend's spouse. I am not your friend. If I hadn't gone into this room, none of you would have spoken to me. You would all be thinking, all right, the ice is broken. Next time, I'll be the one placing a bet with her. I looked at Katie. When did you lose your regard for me? What do you mean, honey? I respect you more than anyone I've ever known. When did I originally inform you that this was acceptable? Well, I never said it was. She responded quietly. How many times did this happen before? Last week. What? Never. Why are you startled by this question? Why should I trust you if I had not seen it? Would you have told me? Would you wait until we got home and then discuss it casually? Hello, honey. Something strange occurred at the poker game tonight. 2. That is the issue, Katie. You are willing to jeopardize our marriage, but not your prized position in the poker group. I finished second to these jerks. That is something I cannot reconcile with. I turned to see Brian and Paul. You knew Katie would prioritize her poker career over her marriage. You encouraged her rather than reasoned with her. I addressed Brian and Paul, then turned to face them. What would you do if you had to see your wife alongside another man? They smirked and exchanged glances before addressing me. Is she being compensated for this? Inquired Paul. Mary's jaw fell. Not to be outdone, Brian weighed in. Well, she learns new skills. I just grinned. So when is the next poker game? They talked to each other for a while, then Brian inquired. Are you interested? No, I responded. When is the next poker game? Catherine, I am perplexed. Why? You are saying you will not return yet? You keep asking about the next gathering. Okay, I've had it. Let me lay everything out. I took my workout bag and unloaded all of the envelopes. Tonight I was going to end a few marriages. But you know what? I feel they are already on the rocks. I put the envelopes back and restored the bag. Catherine, you ripped my heart out. And had your friends detain me while you did it. And you still do not see any wrongdoing. You have not only betrayed me, but also shamefully humiliated me. Clearly, your poker group position is more important to you than to me. The hardest aspect, Catherine, is that these folks are not your pals. Real friends would not put you through this, or enable you to inflict it on yourself. Katie began to interject. No, sweetheart, you mean everything. Take it easy, Catherine. It is my time now. You did not even apologize. You just rationalized why you should pay off your bills. You kept demanding that we get past this. However, you never admitted any wrongdoing. Even after all this, you still intend to attend poker evenings. If you're willing to gamble on sexual favors while I'm present, what would you wager if I wasn't there? Am I responsible for raising someone person's child? Since you lost a bet and were impregnated by someone else? We're done. You have a gambling problem. Seek help. I'll see a lawyer on Monday. If you wish to hire your own attorney, go ahead as far as I am concerned. You can have practically anything, even your misguided friends. Brian remarked. You are an idiot. Allison unexpectedly answered. Screw you. He's correct about everything. You are sabotaging his marriage to Katie. For your own entertainment. He was on the verge of exposing you by stating I had slept with him. And I'm not sure why he didn't. You know what I did. Henry, can I ride with you? Another uneasy pause lasted around 10 seconds. Before Mary spoke out. You know what, Paul? I've had enough. Mary declared. I'm tired of carrying all of the weight in this relationship. Henry, you are spot on. You hardly ever sit by my side. Back before all of this, Henry looked up to her. I've always hoped you treated me as he treated her. This is the first time I've seen them without sitting together, touching or holding hands. It genuinely irritates me that you facilitated all of this, Henry." She proceeded. "Last Saturday, when it all went down, I was as surprised as you were. I honestly thought it was a sick prank, because I know she loved you very much. I'm sorry I didn't speak up then. However, given that you do not have children, it may be best for you to find out now. Can I catch a ride with you?" We left the house with Katie sobbing uncontrollably, Larry and Sandy arguing over the swing, and Paul and Brian exchanging threats that if you don't return home today, don't bother coming back at all. Both girls stormed out and flipped the bird. I dropped Allison and Mary off at their parents' house and returned to my motel. I finished the remaining hard beverages in the room and ate the rest of the junk food. I ultimately dozed asleep after midnight. The divorce went nicely. We sold the house and she put all of the items in storage. I received all I wanted from a very basic home. Allison and Mary separated from their spouses, and the three of us maintained a friendship with benefits arrangement. Katie has remained silent. Honestly, I was disappointed. I expected her to put up more of a fight, possibly seeking treatment. Marriage was clearly less important to her than it was to me. While I never developed romantic affections for Mary or Allison individually, the three of us became extremely close. A year after the memorable incident, I found myself at the bar, and I used to visit on special occasions. The divorce had been finalized 4 months earlier. As I sat there with my beer missing Katia, I dispatched someone behind me. I locked my gaze on the wall, hoping they would depart. I wasn't in the mood to converse, and wished they'd get the hint. "Mind if I join you?" I kept my head down and focused on my drink. "Sure, go ahead, have a seat, a good person like you. I am astonished you are here by yourself. I typically get out with some fantastic pals, but they're on a double date. It's funny you mentioned buddies. It turns out that mine were not as good as I had assumed. I ran with a couple of gals who said there'd be a lovely, kind-hearted guy traveling solo at this bar. I figured I would come introduce myself. I'm Katie." I chuckled and played along. "Nice to meet you, Katie. I am Henry. Why are you here alone? Are you celebrating anything?" "There's nothing to celebrate. I am a relationship failure. I couldn't stop my wife from cheating, so we got divorced. My 2 closest pals are with other people. What about you?" "Maybe I'm a failure because I don't have the best relationship. He loved me dearly, yet I cheated and damaged him badly. And he divorced me. Did he do what was best for himself or for me? Let us start with him, not sure. You'd need to ask him. People think he's always unhappy. And it's been tough. His divorce put me into the lowest point of my life. I was forced to examine myself thoroughly. I didn't like what I found. I began dependency treatment at that time, and have continued to do so ever since my husband anticipated it. I ignored the warnings. In that sense, divorce was probably unavoidable. My reliance would have gradually corroded his affection for me. I've never stopped loving you. Kat could not. I understand, Henry. I got it. First and foremost, I'm glad to hear you call me Katie or Kat again. Not Catherine. I came to explain my conduct and reassure you that it was not your responsibility. I know you already know this, but I had to say it. That poker night, I was confident I would win. When I didn't, I paid up. I didn't even view it as cheating like a handshake. I was scared that they would exclude me from the group. I never saw it as a gamble on our marriage. Because I never anticipated you would leave. It never crossed my mind. I anticipated your rage followed by forgiveness. Seeing it as my responsibility. I thought you'd understand my obligation to keep my word. Personally, I didn't think it was a big deal. But now I see it was the most heinous, nasty thing I'd ever done to someone. Back then, I couldn't understand your seemingly irrational actions during therapy. When I described the fight and how you insisted, I chronicled it. The doctor appreciated your approach, describing you as a genius. She was surprised by how long our marriage had lasted. She also highlighted why you were so focused on the next poker night. Just so you know, there haven't been any more poker nights. I have not handled a deck of cards since that evening. And I never will. I haven't spoken with any of those guys in a few weeks. Since our dispute. How's Sandy doing? She's doing fine. She and Larry ended up getting divorced. He turned out to be a complete moron. And she was too ashamed to say anything. She eventually chose to leave him. Now she's dating a coworker, Henry. You were absolutely correct about everything. I put this dumb poker group ahead of everything else. I loved you totally and I knew you did too. I was convinced you would understand and accept it. If these folks were actually buddies, things would not have gotten this bad. I couldn't resist the allure of being a member of that gang. I'm sick of myself for letting that moron Mark do what he did. I can't imagine how those games might have progressed if you hadn't taken action. I sincerely apologize for all the anguish I caused you. I truly wish you a happy life. You deserved it. I honestly want to maintain a friendship with you. But I do understand. If you're not up for it, I'll leave now. Before I start crying like a child. Give me a call. Katie Rose approached the door. Hello, Kat. I called after her. She halted, but did not turn back. Yes, Henry. Her shoulders shook with tears. Have you had dinner yet? No, Henry. Not yet, she responded, still looking away. I approached her, threw my arm around her shoulders, lowered her head to my shoulder and walked her to the door. Let's go get some nice food. Katie and I resumed our relationship. And a few months later we moved back together. 9 months later we remarried at the courts, keeping the same anniversary date. Katie kept her promise and stopped gambling completely. Even if it was just a joke. While some may argue that once a cheater always a cheater, I do not feel this applies to Katie. I perceive her acts through the prism of her dependency, realizing that it caused her to participate in activity she would not have done otherwise. Her intentions were not to embarrass me or find another relationship. She was fighting her reliance. The poker club members remained buddies, with the exception of Terry, who withdrew himself. I never heard from Mark again. It appears that he chose to leave town. To avoid further discussion of the topic, Katie and I maintain friendships with Sandy, Allison and Mary. Sandy has also stopped playing poker. They've all consented to be godmothers for our boy. Here is the next story. I sincerely sorry, Mr. Walker. It's difficult for me to break terrible news to individuals like you, said John Michaels, as he handed me the envelope inside. There was a full report on what my wife had done with her former supervisor, Grant Jacobs. The envelope also contained many photographs and a DVD. I looked at the images but hadn't seen the DVD yet. Part of me was hesitant, but I realized it was necessary to confront what John had uncovered. Do you have any idea how long this has been happening? I inquired. John referred back to his initial report to provide an answer based on the evidence we discovered. It has been at least 10 years. John added that it may possibly be up to 12 years. It appears to have started about the time Your wife was up for the top position. That was around a year after the birth of our daughter, Sophie. Despite this, I recognized I needed to get DNA tests to see whether the children were biologically mine. Then another concern struck me. How about the danger of STDs? The investigation discovered that in addition to Linda, Grant has had relationships with several married women. Given that Linda and I had been together after she stopped working, I pondered what diseases she might have passed on to me over the years. It was evident that I needed to get medical tests done right away. I glanced over the report again. I couldn't help but laugh at Erin's assessment that Linda appeared clueless of what her lover was up to while he wasn't with her. Just so you know, Mr. Walker, Grant stated that he never intended to end your marriage. John informed me and they never accomplished anything at your home. I hired John to put cameras and microphones in our home. I was relieved that Grant's presence had not soiled our bedroom. Thank you for telling me, Mr. Michaels. I responded. I'd met Grant Jacobs a couple times and didn't like him much. Sure, he was attractive, but he was also rude and had a sneer that made me uncomfortable. I had to stop myself from wiping the smirk off his face several times. I now understood why he seemed so smug. There is more. Mr. Walker, John continued, according to what we've seen and heard, Jacob's sister Natalie has known about their affair since the beginning. It appears she may have even assisted them. As I had always suspected, this made me unhappy. Natalie was a decent individual, the polar opposite of her brother, man. I muttered quietly. So have you spoken with a lawyer yet? John inquired. Not yet, I said. I wanted to get the facts right first. So I do a lot of stuff for Lisa Hawkins. In my opinion, she's the best at dealing with cheats. If you're interested, I may send this to her office and notify her that you'll be dropping by, John offered. That would be great. I said, thanks. I will contact her office and schedule a meeting. John handed me his business card, which I placed into my pocket. Mind if I offer you some advice? John asked. Sure, I nodded. Let Lisa handle it. I know you're hurting right now. And you may want to lash out, but don't. It's not worth getting yourself in trouble. This is not just an online story. This is real life. And you have 2 kids to consider, he advised. I got it. I exhaled. Thanks. I paid my bill and left his office feeling as though my entire marriage had been a lie. Even though I knew John was correct, the ache remained tremendous. I sat in my car crying for nearly 15 minutes. After gathering my thoughts, I took out the business card he had given me and called Lisa Hawkins' law office to book an appointment for the following day. Lisa presented me with a checklist of documents to bring, primarily financial statements. On my way home, I stopped at a convenience store and purchased a pack of cigarettes, which I hadn't done since college. Then I went to a bar and tried to bury my sorrows in a beer. I'm not a big drinker, but I believed I deserved it just once. Are you doing okay, buddy? The bartender inquired as I took a pull from my cigarette. I looked up at him before responding. Could you tell? I responded. Unfortunately, he said with a little grin. Let me guess. I just found out your wife has been unfaithful right on. I nodded for around 12 years. Can you believe it? Believe it or not, I can. He responded. I've seen and heard it all since I started working here. No doubt, I agreed. He chuckled gently. Mind if I share something my grandfather used to say? He asked. Go ahead, I encouraged. He would say. I felt awful because I did not have any shoes. Then I met a man who had no feet. I know you are hurting right now. I've been there myself, but it gets better. And believe me, there are people out there who have had it much worse than you. He shared. Your grandfather sounds like a sensible man, I remarked. He certainly was, the bartender affirmed. Finish your beer, then head home, son. Handle your business. Do what needs to be done. You won't find any answers at the bottom of the glass. Trust me on this. I smiled and nodded in agreement. Deep down, I knew the seasoned bartender was telling the truth. As I sit in my beer, I pondered. I never expected Linda to cheat on me. Over the years, there were small signs. Nothing conclusive alone. But when I put everything together, it made sense to me. Take, for instance. After our second child, Sophie was born. I had a vasectomy. Linda went back on birth control, which struck me as odd. I asked her about it. Why use birth control when I'd already taken care of things? She gave me a story about being extra cautious. And how the pills regulated her period. Not being an expert. I bought it. Then when she landed that job and started traveling with Grant, I noticed her attire wasn't exactly businesslike. She hinted that entertaining might be a big part of her new role. When I asked her about it, it became clear to me that she was entertaining Grant. It seemed like a significant aspect of her new job. Pun intended. I would often call her in the evenings when she was away. I found it odd that she was always in her room when I called. But there were moments when I thought I heard a man's voice nearby. Sometimes I heard Linda's voice break as she spoke. At the time, I couldn't explain it. But if Grant was touching her or having closeness with her while she talked to me on the phone, that would make sense. There were occasions when I noticed the faint scent of Grant's aftershave on Linda's clothes when she returned home. I recognized it because I smelled it on him every time we met. And it made me almost sick. I could only imagine that happening if she was in close contact with him. Then, there were the Friday afternoons she supposedly worked after retiring. My special skills are still needed. So they've kept me on for one afternoon a week. Though I might have to travel sometimes, she explained when I inquired. It's just business, she added. Now I realize her special skills involved more intimate activities. And it was far from just business. To make matters worse, her one afternoon a week turned into 2 or even 3. And she often didn't get home until 9 or 10 p.m. Her occasional trips increased from once a month to 2 or 3 times, often spanning the entire weekend. So much for retirement? All of this unfolded in just the past 4 months. Linda's behavior towards me hadn't changed at all. She was still just as kind and affectionate as she was when we first got married. She seemed to enjoy spending time with the kids and me at home, which was a welcome relief because I had taken on most of the child care duties due to her hectic schedule. I've been grappling with this issue for a while now. So I decided to hire John's investigative firm to look into what Linda's been up to. And now my worst suspicions have been confirmed. The only thing left to figure out is how to divide everything. If it had been a one-time mistake made under the influence, I might have been able to forgive and move on. Sure, I would have been angry, but it wouldn't have been a deal-breaker. But this was a deliberate, ongoing betrayal that lasted over a decade. And now it was time for someone to be held accountable. I stubbed out my cigarette, finished my beer, and left, giving the bartender a nod and a generous tip for his time. When I got home, I noticed Linda's car in the garage. Frankly, I was surprised to see her there. I closed the garage door and went inside, taking off my jacket and heading for my home office. Linda caught me on the way and immediately noticed the smell of cigarettes and beer. "You've been smoking," she said, her brows furrowed. And I smelled beer. "Is everything okay, John?" "No, to be honest, it's not. Today has been one of the worst days of my life," I replied. "What happened? Did something terrible happen?" she asked, seeming genuinely concerned, though I couldn't help but wonder if it was genuine. Something I replied, I'm going to spend the evening in my office. I don't think I'll be good company tonight. Is there anything I can do, sweetheart? She asked. Yeah, I thought, undo what you've done. I'm afraid there's nothing you can do. I said, by the way, John, I'll be away this weekend starting Friday. She mentioned it was only Tuesday and she's already telling me she's leaving for another weekend. Again? What? Again? Didn't you just go on a weekend trip? I questioned. Yes, but something came up, she explained. It's just business, you know. I see, I replied sarcastically. What about Sophie's birthday party? It's this Saturday. I know, she acknowledged, but I can't avoid this. Could you please explain to her why I won't be there? Please, I'm not covering for you anymore, I told her firmly. You missed Erin's birthday and our anniversary last year. You can explain to our daughter why you'd rather be on a trip with Grant than celebrating her birthday here. Linda wasn't pleased with my response and let out a heavy sigh before speaking. John, please, you're being unreasonable. She protested. No, Linda, I persisted. You supposedly retired months ago after your company was sold. But you've been away so much that I can't help but wonder what's really going on. Is there something you want to tell me? What are you implying? Are you accusing me of having an affair? She retorted defensively. How would you feel if the roles were reversed? I countered. She seemed to ease up a bit after that. I see your point, she conceded, but trust me, it's just business. That's what you keep saying. I replied, now if you'll excuse me, I have things to do. Please don't interrupt me. You'll have to take care of the kids tonight. I retreated into my home office, shutting and locking the door. I heard Linda attempt to open it. John, she called out. Please, John, talk to me. Leave me alone, Linda. I gritted through my teeth. I'm busy. I heard her walk away and began gathering the information Lisa had requested. Then I turned to the evidence John had provided. As I read the report, it was hard to believe this was the woman I had loved and supported for the past 12 years. I put on my headphones and started the DVD. Unless you've been in my shoes, you can't understand the mix of emotions when you see the person you love giving themselves to someone else willingly. I didn't care how John got those videos. All I knew was that any love I once had for Linda was now gone. As I watched her with Grant on the screen, I swore to myself that I would never touch her again. I listened to their conversation. Are we still meeting up this weekend? Grant asked. Does he held her? Of course, Linda replied with a smile. You know I can't go too long without having you inside me. What about your daughter's birthday party? Isn't that this weekend? He inquired. Yes, but John will handle it. She said he's better with the kids than I am. Besides, if I have to choose between dealing with a bunch of bratty girls or being here with you, I'd rather be with you. You know, I enjoy having you here, Linda, but I'm worried he might start getting suspicious. Grant expressed. You're supposed to be retired, remember? I've told you, Grant, retired or not. I'm not giving up our thing, she replied, caressing him. I love my family and John, but what we've shared these last 12 years means everything to me. I'm glad to hear that, Grant responded. Remember when we started this? You said you'd choose John and your kids if you had to. Do you still feel that way? I honestly don't know, she admitted. It's never come up. I don't know how you've kept him in the dark all this time, Grant mused. If he ever finds out, it won't be pretty. It wasn't easy at first, but I've learned to keep my business life separate, she explained. I've never denied him anything, and I treat him nicely. If he finds out, I will simply threaten him during the divorce. Grant warned that it might not be so straightforward. However, if things go south, you are welcome to stay here. I enjoy having you around. Thank you, Grant. I am grateful for that, but I doubt anything will happen. He hasn't caught on in 12 years, and I doubt he ever will. How long do you intend to keep this going? As long as I can. Perhaps for the rest of my life, she declared. I thought to myself, maybe you will get your wish. I closed the video. I put the DVD back in my briefcase and heard Linda tap on the office door. What? I replied. The children are retiring to bed. She informed me. Could you please come out and say goodnight to them? Yeah, just a second. I responded. I turned off my computer, went upstairs, and brought the kids in, attempting to smile. Sophia gave me a weird look. Are you all right, Dad? She asked. Yes, I assured her with a smile. I am fine. Go to sleep now, sweetheart. I love you. I adore you, too. She stated this while kissing me. After leaving her room, I walked downstairs to get a cup of coffee. I've kept some lunch warm for you, John. Linda mentioned. I said, I'm not hungry. I stepped out back and sat in a deck chair on the patio, lighting a cigarette. Linda joined me a few minutes later. She tried to kiss me, but I twisted my head and she kissed my cheek. I was not going to kiss the lips that had been on Grant Jacobs' tool. She stared at me with amazement. Please tell me what is on your mind, John. You appear to be deeply troubled. She spoke, her face filled with concern. This is not like you at all, and you know I dislike seeing you smoke. You didn't finish college? Okay, life doesn't always go our way, does it? I replied. What exactly do you mean by that? She inquired. I just shook my head and remained mute. John, please open up to me. I love you. You can tell me anything. I looked at her through the smoke and shook my head. It's too late for that, I admitted. It's too late for what? I do not comprehend. She pressed. I claim that you are business savvy. You can figure it out. Now, please give me some space. I need to sort things out. But maybe I can assist if you let me in. She pleaded. Linda, please. I need you to respect my space. I said, my frustration visible. I moderate my tone slightly, recognizing I may be giving too much away. I apologize for snapping. Work has been difficult and it is really dragging on me. Maybe in a few days. It felt horrible to lie to her, but I reasoned. Why not? It's acceptable to lie to a liar, correct? All fine. She responded, gently, tears flowing down her cheeks. Then she rushed inside, weeping. I smoked 2 more cigarettes before going inside. I took a shower to get rid of the smoke smell. Put on some pajamas I rarely wore and went to bed. Linda laid on her side, seeking for me under the covers. I pushed her hand away, rejecting her attempts for the first time in our marriage. John, she started. I turned away and declined to kiss her good night. Good night, Linda. I mumbled. She turned aside and cried. I didn't care just then. As far as I was concerned, she could go to hell. The next morning, I got up, showered, dressed, and packed my belongings for work. I spent some time with the kids before they went to school. And then left the house without recognizing Linda. She gave me an odd look as I walked out the door. Don't I get a goodbye kiss anymore? She asked as I opened the door. Sorry. I responded by blowing her a kiss. I love you, she said. Yeah, same here. I murmured as I went out of the office. I tried to focus on work, but it was difficult. I informed my supervisor about the issue and he sympathized. Having gone through a divorce himself. He said, do whatever you need to do. Please let me know if you require time off. I thanked him and returned to work, leaving early to meet with Lisa. Good afternoon, Mr. Walker. She greeted me as I entered her office. Lisa Hawkins appeared to be around my age with long blonde hair. I observed the bands on her finger and believed she was married. Please call me John. I replied, shaking her hand. "And you can call me Lisa," she said. I reviewed the report that Mr. Michael sent over. "I'm sorry you are going through this. It's a common problem I encounter, yet it's always upsetting. How are you holding up?" I admitted that I'm not doing well. "I understand." She sympathized. "Have you spoken with her about it yet?" "Not yet. But I was not particularly polite to her last night," I confessed. "For the time being, I recommend maintaining a courteous tone. I understand how difficult it is, considering what you know. But it is best not to reveal your knowledge. Allow her to carry on as usual. She will realize when she is presented with divorce papers. Can you handle that?" "You're correct. It will be tough. It's really difficult, I admit, but I'll do my best." "Good." Lisa nodded. "Now, what are your goals for this divorce?" "I want to get as much as I can," I said. "Especially custody of the children if they are indeed mine. You are aware that mothers normally obtain custody, correct?" She pointed out. I argued that I had been their primary caregiver for the past decade. And she admitted on tape that I am a better parent than her. Her decision to spend her birthday with her lover rather than her daughter should have some significance. It does. And we can use it. Lisa agreed. She took notes on the financial documents I presented. "It appears that your wife received a large cash from the company sale. Her monthly dividends match your wage. This works to our advantage." "Does that imply no spousal support?" I inquired. "Or very little." Lisa affirmed she is still youthful and capable of working. "Furthermore, if we acquire custody for you, we may be able to obtain child support from her." "How about the house?" I asked. "If we are able to acquire custody for you, you can continue to live in the house. And we can ask her to cover half of the mortgage. But there's a chance the court will grant her custody. In that instance, you'd have to pay half of the mortgage plus child support," she stated. "The only other alternative is to sell the house and divide the earnings between the two of you." "How about our retirement and bank accounts?" I inquired. "We can simplify matters by excluding retirement accounts from the equation. You both maintain your 401ks. Everything else will be divided evenly as a judge would generally order," she explained. "How about Grant Jacobs? Can I sue him for alienation of affection?" I questioned. She said, "Not in this state, but we will include him in the divorce proceedings. There may be grounds for suing him for intentional infliction of emotional distress, but it is unlikely to succeed, especially in this state." "And how about his sister Natalie?" She was fully aware of the scenario and may have even helped to assist it. I remarked that it's a similar situation for her. "We can file if you like." Lisa replied. "Yes, please proceed." "When can you file all of this?" I inquired. "I believe we can finish it by Friday," she assured. "Why?" "I'd want to serve her late Saturday afternoon. She will be gone for the weekend with Grant," I explained. "I understand the feeling of astonishment and awe." "We can make that happen," she acknowledged. "However, there would be an extra fee for the process server to work on Saturday." "That is okay. Let's go with it." I agreed. "Okay, John," she came to a conclusion. We ended the meeting with a handshake after I received the normal admonition not to do something rash. She accepted the retainer check. I left her appointment feeling better about the situation. When I arrived home, I found Linda's car in the garage, which surprised me considering it was Wednesday. I believed she would be at work, enjoying the warmth of the hood. The fragrance of pot roast welcomed me as she appeared to have just driven inside. "Hello, honey." Linda returned from the kitchen early. "Is everything okay?" "Yes," I responded. "I hope you are feeling better than yesterday." She said something. "I guarantee you that I'm getting things in order." "Good. Hungry for dinner?" she asked. I made a pot roast. Your fave. I'll have a bite. I accepted. It smells amazing. Did you go into the office? Yeah, a few hours. She responded, preparing for the weekend. Have you talked to Sophie? I inquired. Yeah, Linda said she isn't thrilled, but she will cope. Where are the children? I wondered. In their rooms, they are doing their homework. She informed. So, are you still planning the trip with Grant? I pressed. Yes, business. She stated strongly. Just business. When are you planning to retire? For real, I questioned. I'm retired now. She stressed that she just needed it for a while. I am not sure how long. You seem to be almost full-time already. I commented. I suppose you have to do what you have to do. What does that mean? She probed. With all the time you're providing them, you might as well put them on payroll. I explained why I'm making more now. She made a defense. I put my briefcase away and changed, complimenting her as she cooked. I remembered her abilities, which I had missed when we parted ways. After spending time with the children, I shut myself inside my office. Linda attempted to enter and then knocked when she learned it was locked. I cracked open the door to glimpse her face. John, she asked. Are you staying in here tonight? I believe so, I said. Still a lot to go through and I'm feeling a little under the weather. I don't want to risk getting you sick just before your trip. So I'll sleep on the futon in here. All right, she said. Take care, John. I love you. Yes, same here. I answered by closing the door as she went away. I logged into my computer and began a search. After I found what I needed, I filled out a form and checked my email for confirmation, taking note of the phone number. I placed a reminder on my phone to call the following day and confirm everything. Thursday was much like Wednesday, but Linda tried to entice me to bed in a flimsy nightgown. That left nothing to the imagination. Regardless of her appeal, knowing what she'd been up to with Grant and any interest I felt. Sorry, Linda has anesty migraine, I said, going to grab something and crash here in the office. A tear slid down her cheek as she went away, but I could care less. She called the next day at noon to let me know she was off. I hope you're feeling better, John. She said, maybe we'll reconnect when I go back Monday. Parents will pick up their children today and drop them off tomorrow for Sophie's party. Thank you for the heads up. I responded. I love you, John. She said, I hope you believe it. Yes, I said, have a safe travel. See you later. Goodbye, Linda. After hanging up, I called Lisa. Paperwork is being filed now, John. She informed. They'll be served tomorrow at 5:30 at Grant's. Just as you wanted. Natalie will receive hers on Monday. Thank you, Lisa. I ended the call. I told my helper that I was done for the day. Locked up and went home. We had a lot to accomplish before the movers arrived that afternoon. I had a stack of boxes prepared in the garage for the day's labor. The movers arrived at 5 p.m., just as I had done packing everything. While they loaded it, I worked on adjusting Linda's wedding gown. After I finished, I placed the ashes in a paper bag and sealed it with a note. I placed my wedding ring and our damaged marriage certificate inside an envelope and handed it to one of the movers. I instructed them to bring it to Linda at Grant's residence the next day at 5:30 p.m., along with $2.50 bills for tips. I'll make sure this reaches her. The young man reassured me. Thanks, I responded. Later, I warmed up some leftover pot roast and ate it in the living room while watching television. I slept soundly in the master bed that night. Linda's parents came the next day at midday, accompanied by their children. I'd gotten up early to prepare for Sophie's birthday party in the backyard. Set to begin about 3 p.m., Linda had ordered a cake, which I had picked up earlier and kept in the refrigerator. "You've been busy," Linda's mother remarked as she walked in. "I didn't have many options," I replied. "Hopefully everything runs nicely." She promised the kids that they would like it. Sophie indicated that Linda wouldn't be here. I mentioned. "Yes," Linda's mother affirmed. "I can't believe she overlooked her own daughter's birthday." She paused and looked at me closely. "Is everything well between you two?" "No, it is not," I admitted. "I hate to break it to you, but you will find out soon enough. I am divorcing Linda." "What?" her father exclaimed. "Why?" I revealed that she had been having an affair with her employer for the past 12 years. In fact, that is where she is currently. "My God," her mom let out a gasp. "Are you certain about this?" "I've had my concerns for a long, especially after Linda's alleged retirement. I said that I engaged an investigator a month ago to look into the matter further. I have a thorough report, images, and even video footage if you're interested." "There is no need for that," she declined. "And you are confident you cannot forgive her?" "Absolutely," I said. "Not after all that time. I would like to see the report." George joined in. "I can't believe she'd do anything so idiotic while you're handling it." "I'll finish up for Sophie's party," Rhonda said. I thanked Rhonda and motioned for George to join me in my home office. Giving him the written report, he was visibly horrified by the contents. He shakes his head in astonishment. "That dumb woman," he said as he returned the report. "I apologize, John. She's my daughter. But this is difficult to swallow. You now understand my position." I sympathized. "What is the plan for this Grant guy?" he inquired. "I filed legal action against him and his sister for creating emotional anguish," I informed him. He scoffed. "That's it," he replied. "After 12 years of taking your wife, he gets off lightly." "Do you know how far the litigation will go?" "I understand, George," I acknowledged. "But I need to think about my children. Ending up in jail will not benefit anyone." "I suppose you are correct," he conceded. "But based on this claim, it appears Grant has a thing for married ladies." "I bet Linda isn't his first target." "Probably not," I agreed. "Let me handle this jackass like George advised. "He's not worth going to jail for." "He is not worth it." I agreed. "Here's an idea, John," George suggested. "Let me handle that jerk. I will not allow you risk going to jail for him." I reassured him. "No need to worry, son." George reassured me. "Nobody is going to be locked up." George was a burly man who had grown accustomed to physical labor. I'd met some of his co-workers, all formidable figures who looked out for one another. "What is your plan?" I inquired. "The less you know, the better," George responded with a wink and grin. "Okay, if you say so," I agreed. He grinned as he slapped my shoulder. "Come on, John. Let's go. Enjoy some time with the kids," he proposed. We went outdoors to find Rhonda. Everything was lined up for Sophie's celebration. Sophie's eyes brightened up as she approached the scene. "Thank you, Daddy." She smiled and hugged me. "This is fantastic. I wish Mom could see this." I too admitted. "But we'll snap lots of photos for her, okay?" "Okay," she agreed. I heated up the grill and made hamburgers and hot dogs for everyone, around 4:30 p.m. And the doorbell rang, signaling the start of the festivities. Sophie's friends and their parents arrived within the next half hour, eager to participate in the excitement. Natalie and her husband Ralph, along by their daughter Denise, were among the last to arrive, after welcoming them inside. I directed Denise to the garden, or the party was in full gear and offered Natalie and Ralph drinks. I initiated discussion. I'm surprised to see you here. Natalie. Wasn't there a major business trip planned? I asked. That is Linda and Grant's responsibility, she added. I'm just assisting in the office. I see. I responded. Is everything well with you and Linda? Natalie inquired. Why are you asking? I countered. You are not wearing your wedding band. She made an observation. I looked at my finger and noticed the disappearance of my ring. I returned it to her. I disclosed. Grant might have better luck keeping her devoted than I did. What is that intended to mean? Natalie pressed. Come on, Natalie. I interjected. Do not sugarcoat it. I understand your brother has been seeing Linda for over a decade. You both did an excellent job deceiving me all this time. John, please, Linda still cares for you. Natalie insisted. Yeah. So much so that she continued to lie to me for 12 years. I feel so loved. Right now. I replied sarcastically. What is your plan? Natalie inquired. What are your thoughts? I'm kicking her to the curb. She and Grant will be served shortly. I responded, gazing at my watch. Served? Natalie questioned. Yes. Linda is getting divorce papers and I am bringing Grant to court. Will you be served on Monday? I informed her. Me? Why are you suing me? I have not done anything. Natalie complained. Exactly. I shot back. You know what they were doing for years. My investigator even believes you may have aided, and all the time you acted like a friend. You could have said something. But you didn't. How often have you sat in my house eating my food, knowing what Linda was doing? With your brother, did you relish making me look foolish? My family is now split apart and you're partly to blame because of you three. I will never trust another lady again and my children lost their mother. I hope you are satisfied. I am not happy about this, John. Natalie insisted. I apologize. Sorry, isn't enough. Natalie, I countered. For the past 12 years, you have all colluded against my family. You didn't care about how it affected me or my children, and now you've succeeded. That is not how things went. Natalie came to the defense. Really? Was it strictly business between you? I challenged. At first, absolutely. She stated that it was Grant's idea. Linda agreed since she wanted the job, but she was unhappy. Things changed with time. So even after she sold her company and announced her retirement, I inquired. That was entirely her decision. Natalie clarified. I expected it to stop, but Linda kept going. Then she made a horrible decision. I noted. But you still played a role. I'm very sorry about that, John. Natalie apologized. We never intended to hurt you, but you did. I said it in the worst possible way. It would be better if you gathered your family and left my place. Natalie, she nodded, indicating her comprehension. I get it, John, she said quietly before leaving. And Natalie, I called after her. She turned back to face me. Don't ever return. She wiped away a tear before leaving to find Denise and Ralph. Linda and Grant were laying naked in bed when her phone vibrated, indicating a new message. Assuming it was John sending images from Sophie's party, she hurriedly checked it, only to find a text from Natalie. He is on to us. Damn, she blurted out. What is wrong? Grant asked. It's Natalie. Linda explained that John knows everything. I should tidy up and go home. Is this a good idea? Grant questioned. Linda agreed, pulling on a bathrobe and stepping out of bed. Right then, the doorbell rang. Who might that be? Grant pondered aloud, looking out the window to see a sedan and a moving truck in the driveway. He quickly threw on some clothing and a robe, with Linda following suit. When they opened the door, they were greeted by a man wearing a light jacket. "What up?" Grant inquired. "Are you Grant Jacobs?" a man inquired. "Yes," Grant responded. "Is Linda Walker here as well?" Linda verified. "That is me," stepping forward. "I'll need to see some identification," the man requested. "Why?" Grant questioned as he reached for his wallet. The man silently examined Grant's license before handing him an envelope. "You've been served," the man told him. He then turned to Linda and sought her identification. "Sure." Linda complied by retrieving her wallet after inspecting her license. He handed her another packet. "You have been served," he stated. "Additionally, a restraining order is included. You must both remain at least 500 feet away from Mr. John Walker, his residence, workplace, and children's school. Violating this order may result in your arrest. Have a good day." With that, he left, leaving Linda and Grant stunned as they exchanged looks. "Excuse me. Is Linda Walker here?" asked another man wearing jeans and a t-shirt. "Yeah, that's me," Linda replied. The man handed her a paper bag with an envelope attached, which puzzled her. "I was instructed to deliver this to you, ma'am. I've also got some other boxes," he explained. "Where do I put them?" Grant and Linda exchanged glances before Grant spoke up. "Just leave them in the front room for now," he instructed. "Thanks, sir," the man said, heading back to the truck. As they watched, the men brought in several boxes and stacked them in the front room as directed. Meanwhile, Linda opened the envelope. Inside, there was a man's wedding ring, a note, and her torn-up marriage license. Tears welled up in Linda's eyes as she read the note. "Linda," the typed note began, "I've done nothing but love and support you throughout our marriage. Imagine my shock to find out you've been having an affair with Grant Jacobs for the past 12 years. This is how you repay my love. By lying and cheating. You always claimed it was just business, but now I see it was much more than that. I hope it was worth it. I suggest you see a lawyer as soon as possible. I've already divided our finances according to the divorce papers and changed the locks on the doors. Since I've been the main caregiver for the kids, since you started your affair with Grant, I'm asking for full custody. But I won't deny you visitation. Have your lawyer get in touch with mine to arrange it. Also, since Grant said you could stay with him, I've sent all your stuff to his place. If there's anything else you want from the house, have your lawyer talk to mine and we'll sort it out. I don't want to see you or hear your lies anymore. Please stay away from me and the kids. If you try to reach out, I'll enforce the restraining order. Don't make the divorce harder than it needs to be. I don't want it to get ugly, especially for the kids, but I will if you push it. Just so you know, I have evidence from a private investigator who's been watching you for the past month. I haven't told the kids why we're divorcing yet, but I will when the time is right. Your parents know some of what's going on, but not all of it. It's time to do the right thing and end this fake marriage. As of now, Linda, you mean nothing to me. Goodbye. Signed, John. Tears streamed down Linda's face as she opened the paper bag and found the ashes of her wedding gown. The same one she wore when she married John. She collapsed on the floor, crying. Grant held her and read the letter. "That jerk," he said, "I'll confront him for this." "No, Grant, please don't. I don't want you getting into trouble because of me. This is my mess, she said. What did you get? He's suing me for causing him emotional distress. Grant said he's asking for $5 million. I'll talk to my lawyer to see what we can do about all this. I wonder if he's going after Natalie too, Linda said. Let's find out. Grant said, dialing his phone. If he is, we need to meet and figure out how to handle this mess. After the birthday bash ended, I thanked everyone for joining and for the presents. Looking around at the chaos, I knew cleanup would keep me busy for a while. Sophia approached, tears welling up. What's wrong, honey? I asked, embracing her. I just wish Mom could have been here. She sniffed. I miss her. Yeah, me too. I exhaled. But she had other plans. Sophie's expression turned sad. Are you and Mom splitting up? She asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't want to spoil her day, but I knew the talk was inevitable. We'll discuss it later. All right. Is it because of that guy, Grant? Aaron chimed in. Why do you think that? I probed. I've heard Mom chatting with him on the phone a bunch. He shared. It was intriguing. But I decided to leave it there for now. Let's leave it for tomorrow. I stated firmly. Today is all about Sophie's celebration. Right now, I need your help to tidy up. Okay? Sure thing. Dad. Aaron nodded. I hugged Sophie once more and planted a kiss on her cheek. Everything will be okay, I assured her, wiping her tear. I love you. I love you too, Daddy. She whispered. Rhonda and George pitched in to tidy up. John, you're going to be all right? Rhonda asked before they left. I'll manage, I replied. Thanks for lending a hand. Anytime, she said, if you need anything, just say the word. I appreciate it. I acknowledged. Rhonda hugged me and George shook my hand. Take care, son, he said. After they drove off, I locked up and headed upstairs, crashing into bed almost instantly. The following day, I woke up and tackled my usual Sunday chores. After fixing breakfast for us three while I mowed the lawn, Aaron handled the edging. After wrapping up, we tidied everything and put it away. When it was time for lunch, I headed in, showered, and was surprised to find Sophie preparing sandwiches. We sat at the table to eat, then cleared our plates. Sophie looked at me expectantly. Okay, Dad, she began. What's the deal? I knew this chat was inevitable, so I led the kids to the living room and we sat down. There's no easy way to say this. So here it is. I started. I'm splitting up with your mom. The news landed without much reaction from the kids, which surprised me. I'd expected more emotion. Mom's been seeing that Grant guy, Aaron piped up. Yeah, I confirmed my voice low. I had a feeling. Aaron added that it's been a long time, right? Why do you say that? I questioned him just how she talks to him. He explained. I've overheard her on the phone. She talks to him like she talks to you, Dad. It made sense. I hadn't picked up on it earlier. Probably because I always trusted her and respected her privacy, listening in on her calls with Grant. Or anyone else never crossed my mind. So how long has this been going on, Dad? Sophie inquired. About 12 years, sweetheart, I replied. Sophie gasped. That's almost since I was born. She realized. Pretty much, I affirmed. Damn, Sophie muttered. Sorry, Dad. She added quickly, sensing her language might not be appropriate. Understanding her frustration, I let it slide. Can I stick with you? she asked. Absolutely. If that's what you want, I assured her. Me too, Dad. Aaron chimed in. You've always been there for us. Thank you, guys. That means the world to me, I expressed. Actually, I requested custody of you both. I revealed. I opened my arms. And they both hugged me tightly. Filled me with immense joy knowing my kids wanted to be with me. After a heartfelt embrace, we carried on with the day. Though sadness lingered in the house. The following days passed without any trouble. George and Rhonda kindly picked up the kids after school and stayed until I returned from work. I felt bad for inconvenience seeing them. But they were understanding and happy to assist. Rhonda even took charge of dinner, easing my load. On Tuesday, my lawyer Lisa called. Linda had consulted with her own lawyer and expressed a desire to see the kids. I was hesitant to have her over, fearing she might do something rash. Like take them away. What about the restraining order? I inquired. If you agree, we could temporarily suspend it from 9 p.m. Friday night to 9 a.m. Sunday morning. Lisa proposed. It's tough, but appearing reasonable is key. Got it. How about she visits them at her folks' place? On Saturday? I suggested I can drop them on Friday after school and pick them up either Saturday night or Sunday. I'll propose that and see what her lawyer says. Lisa agreed. No way should Grant or Natalie be there, I emphasized, and the kids might not want to see her. They're not too happy with her right now. I'll relay that. Lisa assured. Anything else? I inquired. Yes. Her lawyer wants the full PI report. Lisa informed me. I've compiled it and sent it off. She should have it by Thursday at the latest. So she's lawyered up, I confirmed. Linda hired Beth Sawyer on Monday. Lisa informed me. I'm surprised Beth took the case, given her strong feelings against cheaters. My guess is she did it because she works at the same firm as Grant's lawyer. Anyway, I'll chat with Beth and see how it goes. I'll keep you posted. The following day, Lisa got back to me. Linda and her lawyer agreed to my terms with the condition that I suspend the restraining order for 36 hours from midnight Saturday to noon Sunday. It would only apply to Linda, not Grant or Natalie. They also settled on Linda visiting the kids at her parents' house and not taking them anywhere. If the kids were okay with it, Linda would stay there overnight. I agreed to avoid looking unreasonable to the court. Initially, the kids weren't thrilled, but I convinced them to give it a shot. George and Rhonda agreed to pick them up from school on Friday and return them Sunday afternoon. Though I had my doubts, I trusted them. George even suggested we hit a bar for some sports and beer Saturday night. On Friday morning, I made sure the kids had everything they needed for the weekend. After hugs and kisses, I dropped them off at school, reminding them to call if Grant, Natalie or their mom showed up. Once I knew they were safe inside, I headed to work. The next evening, George swung by around 530 and we headed to the Flatsick Pub, a popular sports bar downtown, over burgers and beers. We caught up while watching the screens. Between bites, George filled me in. Linda showed up around 9 o'clock this morning. He said it was tense at first, but things calmed down. The kids aren't thrilled with her and they made that clear. Surprisingly, she came clean. That's unexpected. I admitted she claims she still loves you. I think she's aiming for reconciliation. George said. Are you considering it? Not after all the lies and deceit for 12 years, I replied. I get that. By the way, did you really burn her wedding dress? That thing cost me over $2,000. When you two got married? George asked. Felt like the right move at the time. I chuckled. Her lawyer apparently gave her an earful after going through the pie report. George mentioned she might be starting to understand your side of things. Too little, too late, I responded. George nodded and took a sip of his beer. Suddenly there was a disturbance behind me. I turned. Just in time to feel a blow to my head, and stars filled my vision as I hit the floor. I saw a foot swinging towards me, dazed, but instinctive. I dodged it. Grant's furious voice rang out. I'm going to end you, you jerk. Struggling to my senses, I remembered my dad's old self-defense lessons, summoning all my strength. I did it hard in the groin. He cried out and stumbled back, hitting a nearby table. Seizing the opportunity, I jumped at him. It was pure rage fueled by the destruction of my marriage and family. There was no finesse or fancy moves, just raw fury. Unbeknownst to me, Grant was already out cold. I continued to rain blows on him. It took George and another guy to pull me off him, but not before I yelled something incoherent. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed with a doctor examining me. My right hand was bandaged and my left arm was in a cast, and 4 dripped into my vein and my head throbbed painfully. I think you'll be okay, the doctor reassured someone. He'll have a bad headache for a while, but there's no sign of a concussion. We'll give him some pain relief and let him rest before sending him home. Thanks, Doc. George joined in, confused. I glanced at him. He grinned back. Here that you're going to make it. I know you're in pain, but you should see the other guy. It is. He's going to lose a testicle. Got some teeth knocked out and almost lost an eyeball. Seems you busted the knuckles on his jaw. That was Grant, right? Yeah, I asked. How long have I been here? Since last night. It's now 8:30 Sunday morning. George replied, and there are a couple of big cops outside who want to have a chat with you. Ready for that? Might as well get it done? I muttered. George motioned to the officers and they entered the room. Mr. Walker, I'm Sergeant Smith. And this is Officer Jones. We responded to the incident at the Flat Steak Pub last night. How are you feeling this morning, sir? Smith inquired. Like I got smacked upside the head, I admitted. Smith nodded and checked his notes. What can you tell us about last night? He prompted. Not a whole lot. I was just having a burger and beer with my father-in-law here. And suddenly I'm getting hit. I recounted. The guy threatened me, so I had to defend myself. Smith glanced over his notes. That's pretty much what the witnesses said, and the surveillance video backs it up. Do you know the man who attacked you? Smith asked. Yeah, his name's Grant Jacobs. I've got a lawsuit against him and he's part of my divorce proceedings. I explained. Divorce? The sergeant queried. Yeah, I confirmed. Got it. He noted in his pad. So you want to press charges? Yes, definitely. And there's also a restraining order against him, I asserted. All right, we'll look into that. Just so you know, it's probably best if you stay in town for a bit in case we need to talk to you again, Smith advised. No worries, Sergeant, I assured him, raising my hands. He nodded with a smile before they exited the room. Once they were gone, Rhonda, Linda, and the kids entered. Why is she here? I asked, glaring at Linda. My restraining order doesn't kick back in until noon. Linda explained. I thought you'd be with your boyfriend, I commented. She glanced down, feeling embarrassed. I wanted to see you first, she admitted. Besides, Natalie's with him and he's still recovering. I nodded and the kids clustered around me. Sophie's eyes welled up. Will you be okay, Daddy? She asked. I'll manage, sweetheart, I assured her. I heard you really gave Grant a beating last night. Aaron chimed in with a grin. That's the talk. All right. I acknowledged, glancing at George, but it's nothing to boast about. You catch my drift. Got it, Dad. Aaron affirmed. Are you all right, John? Linda inquired. He's going to be fine, Sophie reassured her mother. We'll take good care of him. Won't we, Aaron? Yeah. We got this, my son affirmed. Linda glanced at our teenage kids before speaking. If it's okay with you guys, I'd like to chat with your dad alone for a bit, she requested. They glanced at her briefly before nodding. Sure thing, Sophie agreed. But we'll be right outside. Come on, Aaron, she urged, reaching for her brother. They exited the room, trailed by George and Rhonda. John, Linda began. Once we were alone, I can't express how sorry I am about everything. Well, like I told Natalie. Last Saturday is sorry, doesn't even begin to cover it. I responded. You lied to me and cheated on me for what? 12 years and you think sorry is supposed to make it all right? Was I that terrible of a husband? All I did was love and support you. I don't get it. You are the best husband and father, she said sorrowfully. But even that wasn't enough for you, was it? It's not like that, she protested. Really? That's how it looks from where I'm standing, I countered. You don't understand, she insisted. Then help me understand, I pressed. At first, it was just a way to secure my job, she explained. Grant made having closeness with me a condition for getting the position. It's illegal. Why didn't you come to me first? We could have taken action. I see. You wanted the job so badly that you thought sleeping with Grant was a small price to pay, even if it tore our family apart. I made a pact with the devil, basically, she admitted. So now you're pointing fingers at the devil? I scoffed. Give me a break. The reality is you crave that job so much you were willing to sleep with him for it, even if it meant losing everything. Remember your old mantra. It's just business. Tell me, Linda, where does tearing our family apart fit into your bottom line? What I'm curious about is why you kept it going after you supposedly retired. That was my fault, she admitted. I guess I reached a point where I thought I could have it both ways. You have feelings for him, don't you? That's why you kept at it. How long did you plan to keep it up? Forever. Did you really believe I'd never find out? Or did you expect me to just accept it once I did? And remember, I know more than you think, I reminded her. Yeah, I started to care for him, she confessed. It was tough not to, after all those years. I thought you loved me enough to let me have this. I tried my best not to let it affect you. Are you serious? I exclaimed. Every moment you spent with him took away from us. Surely you recall the concept of opportunity cost. The loss of potential gain from other options when one is chosen. You chose him over your family. Consequently, you lost your family. But I still love you, she insisted. I've never stopped loving you. But you lost respect for me, I countered. She looked stunned. No, never, she protested. Yes, you did, I insisted. That's why you told him you'd be with him for life and threatened to harm me in a divorce. Her eyes widened. You heard that? She gasped. Yes, and more, I affirmed. For instance, you told Grant you'd rather spend time with him than with your own daughter on her Birthday. What kind of mother does that? What kind of message does that send to a vulnerable teenager? Did you even think about her or about Aaron when you missed his birthday last year? She flinched at that. I suppose I just fail as a wife and a mother. She murmured softly. That's your interpretation. Not mine. But if it applies, I shrugged, and I'm sure your partner in crime will be relieved to know. I can't chase him down for child support. Had DNA tests done and the kids are mine? She stared at me. Stunned. Wow, you actually thought I'd do that to you? She exclaimed. Well, you lied to me for 12 years, I stated. You schemed and tricked me all that time hiding your affair. What else would I think? And you might want to know I haven't picked up anything from the two of you. You might not realize it, but Grant likes to play the field. You're not his only conquest. I suspected, but I wasn't sure. What's next? She inquired. Sign the papers, Linda, and this fake marriage. Then get help and sort yourself out for the kid's sake. I urged. You'll likely have plenty of time. I bet Grant's going to be a resident of the state for a while. You're probably right. She conceded. Okay. I'll sign the papers. I'm sorry, John, for everything. You already said that, I reminded her. I guess I did. Well, thanks for letting me spend time with the kids this weekend. She acknowledged. No problem, I replied. I know you doubt it, but I do love you, she confessed. And I wish you could find a way to forgive me and give us another shot. You're correct. I don't buy it, but thanks for saying it, I responded. I suppose a part of me will always care for you too, but it's not enough. I need to trust my partner. And after what you did, I'm not sure if I can trust anyone again. She nodded silently, tears streaming down her face. I understand, she whispered. Goodbye, John. She gave me a kiss on the cheek before leaving the room in tears. George, Rhonda, and the kids entered afterward. Everything okay, son? George inquired. Yes, I responded. We talked it out. I think she finally gets how badly she messed up. So does that mean you and Mom are getting back together? Sophia asked. I shook my head. No, honey, I said, but you still love each other. She insisted. It takes more than just love to make a marriage last. Sophie, I explained. Trust is just as important. And right now, I don't trust her. Someday, you'll understand this yourself. After a final checkup from the doctor, I was released. George drove me home with the kids. Later that night, I received a frantic call from George and Linda. Natalie informed them that Linda took too many sleeping pills and drinking alcohol. Natalie discovered her unconscious at Grant's place while retrieving some of his belongings. A note on her nightstand simply said, I'm sorry, though. She nearly passed. Linda survived and spent a couple of days in the hospital. Following evaluation by mental health professionals, she was placed under George and Rhonda's care. Eventually moving back in with them, she signed the divorce papers without contesting anything. Lisa informed me that I would be officially divorced in 90 days. Free. Yeah, right. Grant and Natalie's attorney swiftly settled with us for half of what I initially demanded. This left me with about $3.5 million after attorney fees. I allocated $1 million each for the kids' college funds and saved the rest. I began planning a Mediterranean cruise them during their next summer vacation. Grant was convicted of aggravated offense, battery, and attempted ending based on video evidence. He received a 10-year sentence in state prison, but could be eligible for parole in around 8.5 years. Whenever I visited George and Rhonda's place with the kids, I'd see Linda Sometimes we'd chat for a bit, but I couldn't shake off what she'd done. She was seeing a counselor to figure out her actions. Still holding on to hope that I'd take her back. I was glad she was seeking help. But it felt like too little, too late. Over time, she slowly reconnected with the kids, which was a relief. George mentioned she spent most of her time writing for business blogs and wasn't interested dating. She was disappointed to hear about the Mediterranean cruise I planned with the kids, but she handled it gracefully, wishing us the best. The kids often sent her messages with photos from our travels. During the cruise, I met Nikki, a charming woman from British Columbia, also on a post-divorce trip. She was a bit younger than Linda with blonde hair and a cheerful demeanor. I enjoyed her habit of ending sentences with I. She had 2 kids a bit younger than mine. Spending summer with their grandparents in Idaho, we spent a lot of time together sharing our stories and even sharing a bed a few times. Sophie teased me about having a girlfriend. We exchanged contact info when the cruise ended, promising to keep in touch through email and Skype. Though I'm not sure where it will lead. We chat online at least twice a week. Life at home adjusted without Linda. My boss was flexible, allowing me to manage taking the kids to school and picking them up. I knew Aaron would soon be old enough to drive and take over that responsibility after our return from the cruise. George delivered some troubling news there, putting Linda in a mental hospital. He said, "Why?" I asked. "Sophie sent her a photo of us dining with that Canadian lady from your cruise." He explained, Linda didn't take it well. She ended herself. We found her in the tub. I can't believe it. I said, "I'm really sorry to hear that." It was genuine sympathy, but there was a small part of me that felt a sense of justice. Now Linda had a taste of the pain I went through when I found out about her in Grant. Yeah. It's tough. Thankfully, she messed it up and survived. But the docs say she needs constant care. George explained, Rhonda and I can't keep up with it 24/7, so they decided she needs to be in a care facility. How long do they think she'll be there? I inquired. It's uncertain, son. Could be a few years or it might be permanent. George replied, we're just taking it one day at a time. If you need anything, just let me know. I offered. Thanks, son. I appreciate that, George said. Nikki and I kept up our long-distance relationship and I found myself growing closer to her. With every conversation, I started imagining a future with her. She felt sorry about Linda, especially for the impact it had on George, Rhonda, and the kids, sharing my feelings. During our last chat, Nikki brought up the idea of visiting us with her kids or having us come up to her place. A 2-story log house on 50 acres of forest north of Kamloops built in the late 1800s. I'd never been that far north, so it sounded intriguing. Whether anything comes of it. Thank you for taking time to hear today's story. If you enjoyed this article, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a tale to tell about your or someone else's circumstance, please don't hesitate to contact me. Take care.